Hey everyone, Alex here, and it's been a while, but there's a topic in my mind that I want to make a video about and share with you guys. Why video games are important and why, as a medium, it should be not just defended, but even promoted in certain ways. We live in a society today where being a gamer is often at times something that you have to bury or downplay, and if it's found out that you are a gamer, in many corners of society today, you have to defend that decision. As if it's something to be ashamed of, as if it's something that is not accepted or not viewed in high regard, or something that's not taken along the same lines as someone who enjoys movies or music or theater or art or anything like that. Why do video games get such a bad rap, and why do we as gamers always find ourselves having to, again, as I mentioned, downplay rather than upplay our favorite hobby? I think there's a lot that goes to it here, and some of it is historical, some of it is generational, some of it is just perspective and how things are viewed from our older generations who tend to be in positions of authority, and younger generations that have come up with a very different set of skills and set of circumstances and experiences that the older generation just didn't have, and no fault of their own. Video games have come a long way, and what is interesting about video games is that it's a very unique art form that has not been explored for a long time. Art, by definition, is the transmission and creativity of someone to a broader audience, and art has always evolved with the technology, how that art can be enhanced to the creator's vision. So way back in human history, art was drawn on paper, on cave drawings, and then later on the painting in oils and things like that, and then moves on to more recent times with film and musical instruments and things like that. Art has always evolved with the technology available at that time to create more realistic or impassioned or interesting forms of art that was not previously available. Enter the 20th century and the rise of computers, and now art has now taken on an aspect that it never had before, and that is interactivity. And that is where we are today. If there's ever a generational divide when it comes to the gaming community, it's essentially those from before 1980 to after 1980, or really the start of the millennial generation. Video games have been around for a little while, not for a very long while, such as film or theater, but they've been around a little bit, and they've been around for about 40 years. Let's say about the mid-1970s. That's when the Magnavox came out, Odyssey 2, and the arcade game Pong had just come out and was for the first time out in the mainstream public. Video games evolved with the technology that was available. In the 1980s, the first real cultural shift with video games really occurred after the video game crash of 1983 and what I believe was the entrance of Nintendo. Nintendo is a very interesting company. If you ever research it, the business decisions that they made were quite daring with a lot of the leaders that they had. But they entered the North American market with the Nintendo Entertainment System right at the time when there was this hugely negative perception of video games that occurred after the Atari crash. And Nintendo, had to sell the video game console as a toy rather than something that more along the lines of computer. So when they try to distribute the NES, they had to go alongside the essentially Teddy Ruxpin, the distributor of Teddy Ruxpin, and try and sell Nintendos. Already at that point, video games have been on a course directed to that of a childish toy, when frankly that was never what the medium was or what the trajectory was going to be. But because of circumstances, that is how it ended up. No fault of Nintendo, it was just simply the environment that they had to operate in at the time. But they became hugely successful in the 1980s, creating a near monopoly in the North American market. Games such as Mario, Zelda, Metroid, and everything else really pushed the boundaries of what video games could be, and the perception of art starting to come into video games. Because before the Nintendo, the NES, games were kind of these blocks that you moved around the screen. It's really hard to kind of see any kind of art in there, and the music chip just gave out little beeps and burps, and that was it. The NES, however, it had a music chip that could do a full chord. It had enough notes and processing power to actually make, for the first time, some real music. And the art style was defined enough from the graphics processor that some real characters could be developed, and real stories and real arcs, and the real differentiation could be made between children's type of games and adult type of games. And this started to go and push the boundaries. Enter the 1990s, and we kind of went through our juvenile years, and the art went from that of a children's toy to, kind of the rebellious teenager. There was blood and guts and violence, and the video game community was viewed in that perception. Nowadays, however, it's completely changed. The video game community, or the video game industry, just the whole spectrum of video games, has evolved greatly, particularly in the last 20 years. Now it's an industry that is no longer juvenile, it's no longer childish. It has a complete range of topics, or genres I should say, going from little children to very adult type of games, but not adult games in a very kind of juvenile sense with lots of sex and gore, but some games that have dealt with some very real and heavy topics. Games such as This War of Mine, Lisa, countless others, Shadow of the Colossus, and some very deep topics of which there's an actual interactivity with the player, and each player will have their own set of experiences with that particular game and how they view this game through the lens of their experiences. And that is what makes it so incredibly powerful. So now, enter today. Here's a genre that, unless you were really around, at least starting in the 1980s or afterwards, you never really had a chance to delve deep and appreciate it, because it was instantly bookmarked as something that was childish, and once you leave your childhood years, it should be thrown away, when frankly that should never have been the case. Now, there are people that have been gaming their whole lives, and they're actually quite up there. People in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s who've been gamers their whole lives, but they tend to be in the minority. It's really people that at this point, say maybe about 45 years or younger, that can truly appreciate the video game genre, or the video game as an art style, rather than something to be discarded and something to be ashamed of. But how do you explore that with a professional community? So I'm going to give an example. So I was at work on Friday, and I'm in a group of guys. I'm an engineer, so it's all guys basically. But coming in there, somehow the topic of video games came up, and everyone was able to join in. Everyone was able to talk about Nintendo, Mass Effect. We all brought our own set of experiences of playing video games. We had one guy who never had PlayStation 4, not because he didn't like playing video games, but he kind of had a beef with Sony. He played an Xbox. I came from the PC side. We had another guy who loved the Nintendo Switch, but we all shared something that we could all, come into and share our experiences with. And that is such a deep and special social fabric that we all share. And unfortunately, there was one gentleman there, he's substantially older, he was probably in his late 50s or so, and he didn't have that. And the poor guy couldn't jump in. He couldn't, kind of share this camaraderie of gamers that we all had. Now, we weren't all gaming the same thing, but we all appreciated the medium. And the poor guy just didn't have that frame of reference. Nothing wrong with that. And of course, not even all young people play video games, or to the extent that we do. But it's become part of the social fabric that we use to communicate with. Before, it was films, and it's still films today. But when anyone uses one-liners from films, such as Star Wars, or The Terminator, or Shawshank Redemption, or Gone with the Wind, or something like that, that's a shared social fabric that everyone can identify with. And that fabric changes over time. And people who have played video games their whole lives, if they want to be in tune with the social fabric of younger generations, need to be part of that video game type of culture. So, why are video games even important now? That is the number one reason right now. It has become part of our social fabric, whether older people wanted to or not. But the other thing about video games, though, is that because the interactive aspects of the video games, it really does also improve mental cognizant function. There are decisions to be made and consequences that come from those decisions that you can explore in a video game that you really can't explore in real life, and you definitely can't explore with a movie. A movie doesn't have the capability of choice. You're just simply along for the ride. Now, as long as the story is really good, that can be a great ride. But if it's not, it's a waste of time. Even mediocre video games can have great gameplay where you can still get some good experience from it, rather it being a waste or not. So the thing is that film, music, television, as great as those and as culture as significant as those type of mediums are, they are inherently passive. Video games are inherently active. If you try to be passive in a video game, you're not going to be there for very long. Your character's going to be dead. Or you're not going to accomplish anything. You're not going to go anywhere. You have to interact with the medium, which you can't do with theater, with film, with music, or anything else. And that is what separates video games from any other type of art or entertainment or social fabric that we can identify with. Even sports fans today. Sports fans, and nothing against sports fans, watch the occasional football game myself. But when you watch a football game, you're still inherently passive. And a lot of people would spend thousands of dollars cheering on their team, but they have no agency with what's going on. They can't influence the game. They can't make the decisions. They can't make the calls. They're not on the field. The only people that can influence the game, at least in American football, are the 11 people that on your team are on the field. And you're just along for the ride. In a video game, you have the agency and you decide the outcome of what's going on. You can be part of a team, such as League of Legends, Dota 2, Counter-Strike, whatever. Or it can be inherently single player, such as Skyrim, Final Fantasy, things like that. It's such a huge expanse of experiences and interactivity that you can't get with any other medium. And we have now entered the point where a lot of studios are really beginning to explore that medium, not just in the terms of what entertainment can provide, but what deeper stories it can tell. And using interaction to tell that deeper story that you can't do with film or music or something else. Case in point, Detroit Become Human. Also, this War of Mine, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of games that really begin to explore deep emotional topics and do it in a mature way and an understanding way that no other medium can do. And I think that needs to be just not just preserved, it needs to be upheld, it needs to be applauded, it needs to be recognized for what it is, rather than being said, oh, he's playing video games, he's a child. These are not childish video games anymore. They deal with some very deep topics. They can deal with loss and sadness and tragedy and, heroism. Not to mention, just simple entertainment. It can take any one of those avenues that it wants. Yeah, there's a lot of movies as well that tell very deep stories, but there's also a ton of movies that are just popcorn, entertaining movies. Call those popcorn flicks, during the summertime. Not really there with a whole bunch of emotional or theatrical depth, but they're just entertaining just in case. So video games is a medium that I think we should all be proud of. I am proud to be a gamer. I'm proud to enjoy this medium. I'm proud to share it when I can share it. And one of the most difficult times I have is when someone is very close-minded and they've already passed judgment on this medium without even really exploring it or being open to it, because there's so much to share. It's such a rich medium. I mean, just all the experiences of playing either RPGs or the competitive feel of playing fighting games, or that comradeship of being on a team game and playing, again, League of Legends or Dota, or being part of a massive community, massive universe, such as being in an MMORPG and really accomplishing things that you can't do on your own. None of this exists in any other form, and I really just want to share that with people. But they close it off, and it's sad to see. It's sad to see because there's so much there to share. Now, of course, we could say vice versa, that, okay, maybe they enjoy something that, maybe I don't. Maybe they enjoy riding motorcycles. Well, okay, I appreciate motorcycles, but would I be doing it? Probably not. But would I try it? Yeah, I'd try it. Hey, Alex, we got a Harley Davidson here. Get your rider's license. Go try it out. Sure. It's not bad. Would I keep doing it? Well, I don't know. But at least I have an open mind to it. I don't prejudge it. But a lot of people judge you for what you do and what type of form of entertainment that you watch. That's not still accepted, even though video games have dwarfed movies and music and theater all put together. It's like the largest industry out there right now, and it will continue to be, and is now increasingly becoming part of the social fabric. It's not accepted among older people in positions of authority, but that's going to change as they, gradually retire out and the real gaming generations really start to come in. Who knows, this will probably happen in the future, and when I become an old curmudgeon, it'll be something from the younger generation that'll be like, oh, well, I can never do that. So I could be easily eating my words. But until then, the most important thing is to always have an open mind and not judge someone for frankly something that's a part of who they are. Whether it's gaming, whether it's someone who's always following a music band, whether it's someone who's loves writing or we all love doing that. But I don't see why gaming should be besmirched or downplayed. Let's upbring it and say, this is just as important to society, just as important to our fabric of culture as any other form, and it should be defended as such. It's going to be tricky, but let's see what happens. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you like the channel, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll be sure to get some more videos up as soon as I can. Take care, guys. I'll talk to you soon.